You clearly don't belong here." These 5 words, dripping with disdain, echoed in the silent, opulent art gallery. The manager saw a woman he'd already judged. He was about to learn he was messing with a titan. The air inside the Elysian gallery was as cold and sterile as the polished marble underfoot. It was a cathedral of modern wealth, where silence was the most expensive commodity. Sunlight, dissected by vast, floor-to-ceiling windows, fell upon sculptures that cost more than houses and paintings that held the weight of entire careers. The only sound was the reverent hum of the climate control system. Into this temple of quiet prestige walked Maya Jordan. She moved with a fluid confidence that seemed to defy the room's oppressive hush. She was a symphony of captivating contrasts. A mature, powerful black woman, her body was a celebration of soft curves and strong lines, a perfect S-shape that was both elegant and commanding. She wore a high-end, form-fitting knit top in a deep emerald green, a color that drank the light. The top was a masterpiece of tailoring, but her full, E-cup bust strained the fabric, causing the buttons to pull, a subtle testament to the formidable presence they contained. One button near her collarbone was intentionally left undone, a small act of defiance against the stuffy atmosphere. Paired with wide-leg designer trousers and minimalist gold jewelry, her look was one of modern, unapologetic luxury. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, weren't just looking, they were assessing. They swept over a kinetic light installation, lingered on a brutalist bronze, and finally settled on the centerpiece of the new exhibition, a dynamic, mesmerizing sculpture of chrome and obsidian titled Nexus. From behind a monolithic limestone desk emerged Alastair Finch. He was the gallery's manager, a man who looked as if he had been carved from the same rigid material as the furniture. Dressed in a tight, 3-piece tweed suit that seemed a decade out of style, his silver hair was slicked back with military precision. He saw Maya, and his thin lips tightened into a line of disapproval. He didn't see a potential client. He saw an anomaly. He saw a black woman whose confident sensuality and obvious wealth, which in his mind screamed new money, was a vulgar intrusion into his rarefied world. He glided towards her, his shoes making no sound. His smile was a work of art in itself, a perfect, practiced curve that held no warmth. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice a low, condescending purr. "The public exhibition areas are on the other side of the atrium. This is the private acquisitions wing." It wasn't an offer of help, it was a verbal eviction notice, delivered with the politest possible contempt. Maya's gaze shifted from the Nexus sculpture to Alastair. She gave him a slow, deliberate blink, her expression unreadable. She didn't get defensive. She didn't bristle. She simply met his condescending energy with an unbreachable calm. "I'm in the right place," she said, her voice smooth and even, a stark contrast to his brittle tone. "I'm here for Nexus. Alastair's practiced smile faltered for a nanosecond. He took in her appearance again, the curves that his mind labeled as ostentatious, the confident set of her jaw that he read as arrogant. It was impossible. People who bought pieces like Nexus were old money patriarchs, European industrialists, tech billionaires who at least had the decency to look perpetually exhausted in gray hoodies. They were not this. He cleared his throat, regaining his composure. "I see," he said, the 2 words heavy with disbelief. "The piece is, of course, a significant investment. It requires a collector of a certain stature. May I ask, are you representing a client? Or perhaps, a benefactor?" The insinuation was as sharp and ugly as a shard of glass. He was asking who owned her. Maya's calm never wavered, but a cool fire ignited in her eyes. "I'm representing my company," she stated plainly. "And myself." Alastair held her gaze, his own eyes cold and gray as a winter sky. The battle had been joined. And in his mind, he had already decided who was going to win. Alastair Finch prided himself on his ability to read people. It was, he believed, a skill more refined than art curation itself. He could spot a genuine collector from a tourist, a patron from a pretender, at 100 paces. And every instinct in his starched, tweed-clad body was screaming that Maya Jordan was a pretender. Her confidence was a bluff, her attire a costume. "Your company," he repeated, letting the words hang in the air as if they were a foreign, nonsensical phrase. "Of course. And for a transaction of this magnitude, we require a standard pre-authorization. A confirmation of credentials, you understand." He was asking for her papers like a border guard. Maya simply nodded. She took out her phone, a sleek, minimalist device. With a few taps, a QR code for a digital card appeared on the screen. It was obsidian black, with no numbers, only her name embossed in a subtle, holographic font. It was the modern equivalent of the American Express Centurion card, a symbol of near-limitless credit, accessible only to a select few. Alistair leaned in, peering at the screen through his narrow spectacles. He saw her name, but his mind refused to process its significance. He saw only the digital interface, a thing of the new world he so despised. "Quite impressive," he conceded, his tone suggesting the opposite. "The things one can generate with an app these days. Very convincing." The insult was clear. Maya simply locked her phone and slipped it back into her pocket. "Is that sufficient for you to allow me to view the piece's provenance documents?" she asked, her patience a finely spun thread. "And the name of your company?" Alistair pressed, unable to let it go. "For our records." "Singularity Matrix Studios," Maya said. The name meant nothing to Alistair. It sounded frivolous, like something from a science fiction novel. He gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of his head, a gesture of pitying dismissal. This was becoming more ridiculous by the second. Just then, a young man in a well-fitted but less expensive suit scurried out from a back office. It was Ben, a gallery intern, eager and perpetually starstruck by the world he now inhabited. "Mr. Finch," Ben started, "the documents for the Rothko appraisal just came through from the lab." He stopped short when he saw Maya. His eyes widened, first at her commanding presence, and then with a jolt of dawning recognition. Alistair saw his opportunity. He would use this boy to expose her charade. He turned to Ben with a magnanimous, patronizing air. "Ben, perfect timing. This lady is from a company called Singularity Matrix Studios. Have you, in your extensive perusals of the modern business world, ever heard of it?" He gestured toward Maya, as if presenting a curious specimen. Ben's jaw went slack. He stared at Maya, his professional demeanor dissolving into pure, unadulterated awe. "Singularity, wait, Singularity Matrix. The developers of Oracle. The game that shattered every sales record last year." Ben's voice rose with excitement. He took a step closer, his eyes locked on Maya. "Oh my God. You're Maya Jordan. I saw your cover story on Forbes. And the Wired feature. You're a legend. My friends and I have spent hundreds of hours in the world you built." The torrent of praise filled the silent gallery. Each word was a hammer blow to Alistair's smug certainty. The intern wasn't just validating her, he was venerating her. Alistair's face, which had been a mask of condescending superiority, froze. The blood drained from it, leaving behind a pale, waxy sheen. He stared at Ben, then at Maya, his mind struggling to reconcile the intern's breathless admiration with the prejudiced caricature he had constructed. Maya offered Ben a small, genuine smile. "I'm glad you enjoyed the game," she said warmly. Alistair watched the exchange, a bitter, acidic taste rising in his throat. His carefully ordered world had just been tilted on its axis. And he was furious. "That will be all, Ben," Alistair snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. The warmth vanished from the room. Ben, flustered by the sudden shift in tone, stammered, "Yes, of course, Mr. Finch." He gave Maya one last look of reverence before scurrying back to the safety of the office, leaving a trail of charged silence in his wake. Alistair's composure was gone, replaced by a cold, coiled fury. His authority had been questioned, his judgment undermined by a mere intern. The embarrassment burned hotter than any anger. He turned back to Maya, his eyes narrowed into tiny slits of resentment. The fact that she was right, that she was who she claimed to be, only made him despise her more. A video game developer, he said, the words laced with venom. He made it sound like she ran a children's lemonade stand. How novel. Maya refused to take the bait. Her objective was the art. The provenance documents, she prompted again, her voice still impossibly calm. But Alistair's humiliation was now a living thing, and it needed to lash out. He felt a desperate need to regain control, to put her back in the box he had created for her. It was at that moment Maya reached into her sleek leather satchel. She produced not a wallet, but a single, heavy vellum folder. She placed it on the desk between them with a soft, definitive sound. "Perhaps this will expedite things," she said. "I'm not just interested in Nexus. I'm here to acquire the entire Futures Voice collection, of which Nexus is the centerpiece. This is my company's official letter of intent to purchase." Alistair stared at the folder as if it were a venomous snake. With a trembling hand, he opened it. Inside was a single page of thick, watermarked paper. He scanned the text, his eyes widening in disbelief. He saw the official letterhead of Singularity Matrix Studios. He saw a list of the 6 pieces in the collection. And then he saw the number at the bottom. An 8-figure number. An offer so substantial it would be the gallery's biggest sale of the year. The sheer, staggering audacity of it broke something in Alistair. His prejudice, his wounded pride, and his fury coalesced into a single, blinding conviction: this had to be a lie. A black woman, a gamer, who looked like that, could not possibly command this kind of capital. It was a logical impossibility in his warped universe. He let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a horrible, ugly sound. "This is a mockery," he hissed, his voice trembling with rage. He pushed the folder back across the desk. "An elaborate, pathetic prank. What do you possibly hope to achieve with this performance?" His voice rose, cracking the sacred silence of the gallery. A couple brows in the next room paused, turning their heads. "This document is a fraud. An insult to me, and an insult to this institution," he declared, his face now a blotchy, furious red. "You think you can just walk in here and play act as a serious person?" Maya met his tirade with a profound, unshakable stillness. "Mr. Finch," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "I assure you, the offer is very real. If you doubt its validity, I suggest you call the artist's agent. Her contact information is right there in our corporate file." The suggestion that he, Alistair Finch, should have to verify anything at her behest was the final insult. "Call the agent," he spat. "Oh, I'll be making a call, all right. I'm calling security. We have a zero-tolerance policy for con artists." He reached under his desk, his hand searching for the silent alarm button. The click of the security button was barely audible, but it landed in the quiet gallery like a gunshot. "I think you're making a grave mistake, Mr. Finch," Maya said, her voice low and steady. She began to place the letter of intent back into her satchel. "The only mistake was allowing someone like you to waste my time," Alistair shot back, his face a mask of righteous indignation. Within seconds, a man in a crisp, dark security uniform appeared. He was tall and built like a linebacker, but he moved with a quiet professionalism. His name was Marcus, and he was an art history student paying his way through NYU by working at the gallery. He recognized the tension immediately, his eyes darting between Alistair's furious face and Maya's composed demeanor. He also recognized Maya Jordan. Not from Forbes, but from a panel discussion on digital art and new media he had watched online. He knew exactly who she was. "Is there a problem, Mr. Finch?" Marcus asked, his tone carefully neutral. Alistair pointed a trembling finger at Maya. "Yes, Marcus, there is a problem. This woman is attempting to commit commercial fraud. She presented me with this. He gestured dismissively at Maya's satchel, a forged document for a multi-million-dollar purchase. I need you to escort her off the premises. Immediately. Marcus looked at Maya, then back at his boss. He didn't move. He knew this was a disaster in the making. Alistair noticed the hesitation. He also noticed the two other patrons who were now openly staring. He decided to play to them, to vindicate himself. It's a shame, he announced to the room at large, his voice dripping with condescension. Some people seem to think a flashy presentation is a substitute for actual substance. They believe they can force their way into worlds where they simply do not belong. The coded language was unmistakable, a vile cocktail of racism, classism, and sexism aimed directly at Maya. That was it. The final line had been crossed. Maya stood up to her full height. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Her presence alone seemed to draw all the energy in the room toward her. She fixed her gaze on Alistair, and the full force of her power, long held in check, was finally unleashed. "Worlds where I don't belong," she began, her voice resonating with a quiet, steely authority that silenced the entire gallery. "Mr. Finch, let me tell you about the worlds I've built. I built worlds from nothing but code and imagination, worlds that are now home to millions of people. I did it in an industry where men, mostly white men, told me I didn't belong." She took a step forward. Alistair instinctively took a step back. "They told me a black woman couldn't lead a development team. When I did, they told me I couldn't run a studio. When I did, they told me I couldn't secure funding because my ideas were niche and my appearance was distracting. For my entire career, men like you, full of smug certainty and cheap prejudice, have tried to put me in a box." Her voice was calm, but every word was a hammer, dismantling his reality piece by piece. "You look at me and you see a threat to your neat, tidy, little world. You see my skin color, you see my body, and you make 1,000 pathetic, ugly assumptions because you are incapable of seeing anything else. You can't comprehend that a woman who looks like me can be brilliant, powerful, and successful on her own terms, without a benefactor to approve of her." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle into the profound silence. "So a man like you, Mr. Finch, who only sees skin color and cup size, could never possibly comprehend how I got here. You were right about one thing. I do represent a company. The company I built from the ground up. I am the founder and CEO of Singularity Matrix. I am Maya Jordan." For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the gallery's air system. Then, Alistair did something that sealed his fate. He laughed. It was a loud, braying, incredulous sound that shattered the dignity of the moment. "CEO? You?" he scoffed, turning to the security guard with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Marcus, I've had enough of this fantasy. Get her out of here now. She's clearly delusional." But Marcus didn't move. He stood his ground, his expression firm. He looked from his laughing boss to the powerful woman standing before him. He made his choice. "Sir," Marcus said, his voice respectful but unwavering. "With all due respect, the letter of intent has contact information for the artist's representatives. Maybe you should just make the call." "To be sure." Alistair stared at him, aghast. Betrayal flashed in his eyes. "You're taking her side?" "I'm on the side of not making a catastrophic mistake, sir," Marcus replied calmly. Cornered and furious, Alistair knew he had to call the bluff or lose face completely. "Fine," he snarled. "Fine. We will all see what a liar you are." He snatched the phone from his desk and angrily dialed the number listed for the artist's primary agent. He put the call on speakerphone for all to hear. The phone rang once, twice. Just as it was about to ring a third time, a new sound filled the room. A melodic, custom ringtone. It was coming from Maya's pocket. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled out her phone. The screen was lit up with the incoming call. From Elysian Gallery. Time seemed to stop. Alistair's hand, holding his own phone, froze mid-air. His jaw went slack. His eyes bounced from the phone in his hand to the phone in hers, his brain short-circuiting as it tried to process the impossible. Maya pressed the accept button and lifted the phone to her ear. Her voice was pure honey. Isabella? It's Maya. Yes, I'm at the gallery now. She paused, her eyes locking with Alistair's. There seems to be a slight misunderstanding. Before another word could be spoken, the grand doors to the private wing swung open. Two women entered, deep in conversation. One was the artist herself, Isabella Rossi, a fiery woman with paint flecks still on her hands. The other was a regal, impeccably dressed woman in her late 60s, with an air of absolute authority. It was Eleanor Vance, the owner of the Elysian Gallery. Eleanor's eyes scanned the room and landed on Maya. Her face broke into a wide, genuine smile of pure delight. Maya. Darling, she exclaimed, striding forward and enveloping Maya in a warm, familiar hug. I'm so glad you could make it yourself. I told Isabella you wouldn't miss this for the world. Alistair looked as if he had been turned to stone. His face was a ghastly shade of pale. He watched as his boss, the matriarch of the New York art scene, embraced the woman he had just tried to have thrown out. And Mrs. Vance, he stammered, his voice a pathetic croak. You know this woman? Eleanor finally pulled back from Maya, her smile vanishing as she sensed the icy tension in the room. She looked at Alistair, her eyes suddenly sharp as a razor. Know her? Eleanor's voice dropped, becoming cold and dangerous. Alistair, this is Maya Jordan. She isn't just one of our most important new patrons, she's a dear friend of Isabella's and a personal guest of mine. Her company's acquisition of the Futures Voice collection is the most significant deal for this gallery all year. Now, tell me. What, exactly, is the misunderstanding? The truth, once revealed, sucked all the air out of the room. Alistair Finch stood exposed, his bigotry laid bare under the gallery's expensive track lighting. He opened and closed his mouth like a fish, but no sound came out. The web of assumptions he had so carefully woven had become his own cage. Alistair? Eleanor Vance prompted, her voice leaving no room for evasion. He finally found his voice, a weak, desperate whisper. I didn't realize. Her appearance. He gestured feebly towards Maya, a last, pathetic attempt to justify his actions. I thought. You thought what, Alistair? Eleanor cut him off, her tone merciless. That a brilliant, successful woman can't be black. That a person of influence can't have curves. That your narrow, prejudiced worldview is the standard by which we measure our clients. She took a step closer to him, her voice low but carrying to every corner of the silent room. Your job is to appreciate art, Alistair. To recognize its value regardless of its form. You are supposed to do the same with people. You have failed spectacularly on both counts. She paused, letting the condemnation hang in the air. We have had complaints before. About your dismissive attitude towards collectors who didn't fit your archaic mold. I gave you the benefit of the doubt. That was my mistake. A mistake I am correcting now. Eleanor turned her head slightly. Marcus, thank you for your professionalism. It has been noted. Then she turned back to Alistair. Your behavior has been a disgrace to this establishment and to the spirit of the art we represent. You're fired. Effective immediately. Collect your personal effects and leave. The words landed like a judge's gavel. Fired. The finality of it seemed to shatter what was left of Alistair's composure. He just stood there, a hollowed-out man in a tweed suit, as his world crumbled around him. Eleanor turned her back on him completely, her focus now entirely on Maya. Sincere apology softened her features. Maya, I am profoundly sorry. There are no excuses for what happened here today. Please, allow me to handle the final details of the acquisition personally." She gestured towards a discreet, paneled wall that Maya hadn't noticed before. With a soft click, a section of the wall opened, revealing a hidden doorway into a luxurious private viewing room. "Right this way," Eleanor said warmly. With her head held high, Maya Jordan walked past the shell-shocked, defeated Alastair Finch. She didn't give him a second glance. The patrons who had witnessed the entire drama watched in stunned silence as she and the gallery owner disappeared through the secret door, which closed behind them with a decisive thud, leaving Alastair alone in the cold, sterile gallery that was no longer his. Maya Jordan's power proved that true value can never be defined by skin color, body shape, or the narrow prejudices of others. Her story is a testament to the fact that success is the best answer to ignorance. Have you ever been judged or underestimated based on how you look? Share your story in the comments below, but please, always comment with respect. If you believe that true worth comes from within, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where prejudice collides with reality.